Are you tired of the same old quiet chess openings? Looking for something with a little more bite? A way to maybe land a knockout punch right from the start? Well, today we're diving into the Vienna Gambit. It's an aggressive, really exciting opening that's designed to surprise your opponent and fight for the win right from move one. People have called this opening a hope chess killer. And what does that mean? Well, it's an opening that just ruthlessly punishes players who don't know the specific theory. You know the type, the ones who make natural-looking moves and just kind of hope for the best. With the Vienna Gambit, you're going to show them, and show them quickly, that hope is definitely not a strategy. So here are the moves that set the whole thing up. We start with 1 e4, e5, pretty standard stuff. Then 2 nc3, just a solid developing move. Black almost always responds with nf6. And now, here comes the bombshell, 3 f4. White immediately challenges Black's control of the center, offering up a pawn just to blow the position wide open and launch an attack. Now, if that f4 pawn push looks a little familiar to you, well, it should. Let's talk about the Vienna's more famous and maybe a little more infamous relative. So let's put the Vienna Gambit right next to the King's Gambit. The King's Gambit is all about romance and aggression, but let's be honest, at higher levels it can be a little shaky. The Vienna Gambit, though, it's like its more responsible but just as dangerous sibling. And that knight on c3, that is the absolute key. It controls the crucial d5 square and shuts down a lot of Black's most annoying counterattacks, which makes the whole plan much, much more solid. So, after White plays f4, all eyes are on Black. Their next move is a massive decision, a true fork in the road that's going to decide the entire feel of the game from here on out. Black basically has a few ways to respond here, but we're going to focus on the two big ones. First, they can accept the gambit and take the pawn, which, as we'll see, is a huge mistake. Or, second, they can strike back in the center with d5, which is the correct mainline response. Let's go down each of these paths, and we'll start with the one you're really hoping your opponent plays. All right, path 1, the trap. Honestly, this is what makes the Vienna Gambit so much fun to play. Your opponent sees what looks like a free pawn, their eyes light up, and they can't resist taking it. So Black plays x4, and it seems so natural, right? I mean, in the King's Gambit, this is the main move. But here, oh boy, it is a near disaster. Because White unleashes this killer follow-up, pawn to e5. This single, powerful pawn push completely and immediately seizes the initiative. And this move just perfectly illustrates the problem for Black. Just take a look at the board for a second. That pawn on e5 is attacking the knight on f6, and all of a sudden, Black is in a world of hurt. So the question is, where does that knight actually go? The short answer is nowhere good. If the knight hops to g4 or e4, White can just develop their own pieces and attack it again, gaining time, or what we call tempo in chess. This lets White build a massive attack, while Black is just scrambling to save their knight. The whole point is, by making one move that seemed totally obvious, Black has handed White a huge space advantage and basically the keys to a devastating attack. This often leads to a completely lost position in just a few more moves. Okay, but what happens if your opponent knows what they're doing? What if they don't fall for the trap? Let's move on to path 2 and see how this thing can turn into a real high-level fight. This is the move you absolutely have to be ready for. Instead of greedily grabbing the pawn, the correct response for Black is to immediately strike back in the center with d5. This is the only move that really challenges White's idea, and it's a clear signal that your opponent knows their stuff. When Black plays d5, the game just explodes. White will usually capture on e5, and Black will recapture with their knight. So what's the result of all that? Well, Black gets this beautiful, strong knight planted right in the center of the board, a really powerful piece. But White gets a huge prize in return, an open f-file, which is like a superhighway for their rook to join the attack on Black's king. The game is basically balanced, but it is incredibly sharp and tactical. The easy win is gone, and now you are in a real duel. So after looking at the tempting trap and the really tough duel, what's the final verdict on the Vienna Gambit? Is it just a cheap truck, or is it a real treasure for your opening repertoire? Let's break it down. The pros are huge. It has massive knockout potential against anyone who's unprepared, and its surprise value is a weapon all by itself. But yeah, there are cons. If your opponent knows that 3d5 mainline, your easy win completely vanishes, and you really need to know what you're doing. And like any gambit, if your attack runs out of steam, you could be left with some long-term weaknesses. This brings us to a more philosophical question. Is an opening like this real chess? Some purists might argue it's just a trap opening, designed to win quickly without a deep strategic battle. They'd say that if black responds correctly, the game is just equal and messy. But maybe that's the whole point. It forces a fight, it tests knowledge, and it creates these exciting, unforgettable games. So the question I'll leave with you is the Vienna Gambit a potent weapon you'll add to your arsenal, or is it just a clever trick?